Hi everyone, I'm Professor Sean Turnell from the Department of Economics here at Macquarie University. I'm talking to you today at Macquarie's Open Day, which is virtual of course rather than in person. It's a pity that, but we'll do our best anyway. What I want to talk to you about today though is an economic phenomenon that is highly relevant for the times that we live in. In fact, I want to talk to you about something for which we can say there's even been some progress in the pandemic. What I want to talk to you about today is the world of digital currencies. Now, I'm sure you can see the slide behind me. You might be wondering, why has he got that picture there? Why is there a picture there of a man with an old painting, a ship behind him? Well, the man is J.M.W. Turner. He's England's most famous painter, and the painting is England's favourite painting. There was a big poll done by the BBC a few years ago asking people what was their most favourite painting, and this painting, which is called The Fighting Temeraire, was voted as the most popular. Now, why is this relevant? Well, The Fighting Temeraire is one of those paintings that we could call a metaphor. If you look at the painting, you can see that there's an old ship there. It's the hero of the Battle of Trafalgar, HMS Temeraire, but it's being towed away by a newer ship, a steamship, and it's being towed away to the breaker's yard. Its life is done, it's over, it's being taken to be broken up. In other words, the new world is coming in, the new world, the Industrial Revolution, is coming in and taking away the old world of wooden ships and sail. Now this is interesting for us and want to talk about today, because what we've got in the form of digital currencies is in a sense the new world. The old world is the world of paper currencies. Is it the case that the new world is taking over the old? And has the pandemic, the COVID pandemic, accelerated that change? All of which then just makes you wonder, why did the Bank of England, this is a brand new £20 note, is where that picture adorns, why did the Bank of England choose that particular picture at this particular moment? At the moment that paper currency may be making its way for the digital world. So we've got multiple metaphors going on in this particular £20 note. So that's starting our theme, if you like, for just exploring the world of digital currencies. Okay, so what we're going to look at is, we've started already as suggesting that COVID-19 might have instigated a new world in the form of how we buy and sell things and what sort of currencies we use. Then what we're going to do is have a look at the major digital currencies that are around. The really famous Bitcoin, the not quite so famous but great rival of Bitcoin, created by Facebook called Libra. Then we're going to have a look at a new idea that central banks might start and issue their own digital currencies, and then we'll finally just put a little bit of a twist on it and ask, have we forgotten anything? So let's start off with Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as I mentioned earlier, far and away the most famous of the digital currencies, been around for a while now, about 10 or so years. Now, what is Bitcoin? Well, the first thing we can say is it was created by a very mysterious man called Satoshi Nakamoto. Very mysterious because we don't know if that's his name. We don't know if he's still alive. We don't even know whether he existed. He may be several he's, or several she's, or several mixture of any number of groups of individuals or people. What we do know is that for 10 years he hasn't been heard of. But Satoshi Nakamoto invented Bitcoin. Okay, so what is Bitcoin? Bitcoins are created by networks of computers solving mathematical puzzles. And they call this puzzle solving, they call it mining. And they do that quite deliberately because they want you to think about gold. Because, as we'll see, they're comparing Bitcoin very much to a rare item like gold, and therefore the basis of a currency. One puzzle drives out one solution, which creates one Bitcoin. So that's the mining. Solving of the puzzle, one solution, one Bitcoin. That's then added to a public ledger, network of computers joined together, sharing a ledger, which we famously know as the blockchain. Each new Bitcoin is added to the blockchain, giving it a unique number within a sequence. In other words, a unique digital property. That unique digital property, that Bitcoin, can then be used to trade, to buy, to sell things, to save in, to do all the other things that we do in individual currencies. Now, over time, these mathematical puzzles, and we sometimes use the expression algorithms, get harder and harder. So these puzzles getting harder and harder, they're using more and more computer time until, not too far away, within the next few years, this process is going to end completely. And upon the 21 millionth Bitcoin, it's all over. There will be never any more than 21 million Bitcoins. Right at this moment, we're up to about 18 million. So there's 3 million more to go. After that, the process comes to an end, and these 21 million Bitcoins become even rarer. Okay, now there's lots of controversies over Bitcoin. So let's just spend a little bit of a moment thinking about some pros and cons, some pluses or minuses for Bitcoins and other forms of digital currency. Number one, it's suggested that they're much lower cost and they're much more trusted for digital payments. Probably many of you or many of your relatives might worry about using their credit card or their debit card online. If you could use Bitcoin online, then that would be a way of protecting yourself. So it's seen as somewhat more secure. Bitcoin is also seen as a substitute for bad currencies. Now here in Australia, we don't need to worry too much. We trust the Australian dollar and so on. But many other countries around the world don't have trusted currencies. What can you use instead? Maybe Bitcoins. Privacy. Each Bitcoin is unique. It's not attached to a bank or anything like that. It's a unique digital item. So you can use it and no one will ever know where you're using it, why you're using it, etc. So there may be a privacy upside to Bitcoin as well. Finally, and this is the bit, of course, where COVID-19 has encouraged the use of digital currencies are very clean. You don't touch them. They just move around online. Unlike physical currencies, of course, because we're starting to get worried that our fingers will leave diseases and other horrible things on paper or polymer notes. And so the idea is that digital currencies won't spread things like COVID-19. Okay, so those are some pluses, if you like, for digital currencies. What about some of the things against? What are the problems? Number one, I mentioned the upside of privacy, but is there a downside as well? What if criminals are using Bitcoin? Could this not encourage criminal enterprise? What about the costs of mining? Now, I just said that there were computers creating Bitcoins by solving puzzles. The truth is, this solving of puzzles, the giant algorithm solution mechanism, generates huge amounts, or uses rather, huge amounts of electricity. So it's very costly economically, but very costly in terms of the environment as well. Finally, some people worry about threat to financial stability. Probably, as many of you know, the value of Bitcoin goes up and down quite dramatically. So there's a bit of a worry that will this just introduce more financial instability into a system that doesn't need any more instability? Okay, so that's Bitcoin. But Bitcoin, as of last few years, and it's not quite in place yet, has a great rival called Libra. And Libra is created by Facebook. Created by Facebook, but there are many other companies that have agreed to be part of the Libra network and which will accept Libra and so on. And some of those are just given in that overall symbol there of Libra, which you can see on the screen. What's different about Libra? What can we say about Libra? Well, the first aspect about Libra, like Facebook itself, is that it's seen as something for the globe. So it's a currency, a bit like Bitcoin, that's not for any particular country, but is something selected for everyone to use. So whether you live in Australia, in the United States, in England, India, Brazil, wherever you live, you can use Libra and use it on the online world in which trading can be undertaken. And of course the idea that perhaps Facebook might be the trading centre for all of this. What about stability? Well, Libra is interesting and a little bit different to Bitcoin. Remember how Bitcoin had its value created by the solution of mathematical puzzles, which created a unique digital electronic property. In the case of Libra, it's not that. Each Libra is backed by an equivalent amount of existing currencies. So 1 Libra backed by $1 or $1 or £1 sterling. Libra's promise is they will keep a reserve of existing currencies that exactly matches every new Libra that they issue. So that's how they say they get stability, and they say this is why they are better than Bitcoin. COVID-19 has caused a lot of thinking, as I mentioned before, about digital currencies and the real pluses for digital currencies. But many regulators, many governments around the world are worried about just Bitcoin and Libra, right? Do we really want our financial future being decided upon by the likes of Satoshi Nakamoto or Mark Zuckerberg at Facebook? Is that what we want? Maybe it's time for the world's central banks to come in. So there's a discussion that central banks perhaps should create their own digital currencies. So the Reserve Bank create its own digital version of the Australian dollar. The Federal Reserve create a digital version of the US dollar, etc. That's the idea. Partly it's stimulated, as I mentioned earlier, by the idea that disease could get on paper currencies. That's one thing that has caused the official world to start thinking along these lines. Another one is just in the economic reaction to COVID-19. As many of you will know, COVID-19 has put many people out of work. It's caused great harm to the economy. As a way of trying to oppose that, to stimulate, to get the economy back, many governments around the world have made payments to individuals. If you could do it very simply through digital currencies, in other words, if everyone had an account at a central bank and you could just credit their account, then that could be a much simpler way of delivering a stimulus to the economy. This has been particularly important in the United States, where, funnily enough, there are a great mass of people in the US, a sizable proportion of people in America, who don't have a bank account. So perhaps if a digital currency was created at the Federal Reserve and that could be used to give to people in times of trouble like COVID-19, then that's one of the things argued for it. Another one is the idea that in order to try and stimulate the economy to get us out of the problems of COVID-19, many of you will be aware that central banks around the world have been lowering interest rates, trying to get the economy moving. But what if lower interest rates are not the answer? What if they're not enough? What if, again, what you need to do is get money directly into people's hands? Well, again, this is a possible avenue for the creation of digital currencies which governments and central banks around the world can just quickly get to individuals and get them banking and spending instead of needing to use banks as intermediaries into this process. So that's part of the story as well. So overall, what we can say is that COVID-19, as well as technological changes, driving some really important developments in the monetary world. A little bit like that slide with the Temeraire, what we're seeing at the moment is the old world being towed to oblivion, perhaps, by the new. Now, one final question that I wanted to leave you with, though. Are we forgetting someone? Are we forgetting someone really, really important in our lives, particularly in our lives when we're under 10? The tooth fairy. What is the tooth fairy going to get when kids lose their teeth? Is the tooth fairy going to leave, some sort of credit with Bitcoin, a Libra currency? Or are they still going to use one of those little gold coins or one of those little paper notes? This is the sort of thing that we have a look at at Macquarie within the Bachelor of Economics degree, Bachelor of Commerce degree, etc., if you major in economics. After this, we're about to end this. Question and answer session will begin, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions you have on coming to Macquarie to study economics, to study commerce, to study things like Bitcoin, Libra, and some of the dilemmas that the tooth fairy may come across. Thank you.
Hello everyone. For those of you who have already joined us for a couple of sessions today, welcome back. But for those of you who are joining us for the first time today, welcome to Macquarie University Open Day stream. So thanks so much for joining us here at the Accounting, Finance and Economics stage. We really appreciate you guys getting involved wherever you may be located. So thank you for being here and supporting us today. Now, Some of you may already know me, but for those of you who don't, my name is Sienna. I'm in my final year of a Bachelor of Commerce, majoring in Decision Science, and I've also got a Master in Management lined up because I'm not ready to say goodbye to Macquarie just yet. So today's session is going to be all about Bachelor of Economics. Now I'm joined here by Associate Professor Sean Turnwell. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sienna.
Now, to tell you a little bit about this man, okay, so he's an expert on Burma and the use of economic sanctions. He's advised the US Congress on the Burma situation, and he was a senior economic advisor to the government of Myanmar. Okay, so this man knows his stuff, and it's an incredible opportunity to pick his brain. So ask any questions you have. You'll see to the right of this panel the Q&A forum. Put your questions in there. We'll do our best to work through all of them now. But in the meantime, let's get into things. How about that? Now, I can already see we've got a question come through, and I think it's a pretty valid question that even I'm curious. They know they want to do Bachelor of Economics, right? They definitely want to do the Bachelor of Economics, but they think they want to put it with something else. Can you run us through some great combinations or some popular combinations that students put with the Bachelor of Economics?
So economics is a great subject to combine with others because in many ways economics is big picture and it's thinking, it's ways of thinking, ways of approaching the world and so on. And so it's a particularly good combination then with disciplines that may be more practical, maybe more applied. Economics itself at Macquarie is pretty applied, but you can combine it with other disciplines to have a really, I think, significant combination of top quality sort of intellectual content, if you like, with other stuff that's about making a difference. So things like Bachelor of Economics with business analytics, for instance. So the whole world of economics has been transformed at the moment, not only by COVID and things like that, but also by technology. So in the past, for instance, in economics, we would have to make assumptions about how people behave, or we would have to use surveys and things like that. With things like business analytics now, the vast amount of data that's coming from mobile phones, etc., we've now got real-time information about making market decisions and seeing what's going on. So that's a great combination, just economics and business analytics. But then you've got all the traditional ones, you know, wonderful combinations that have stood the test of time. Things like economics and the law. Law is incredibly important in just about every aspect of economics. So that's a good combination. Economics and international relations. For a country like Australia, well, indeed all countries, the international interactions we make in a globalised world, etc., increasingly important.
And
so
you know all about that because you've got your international experiences.
Absolutely. So, and in fact, just overall, I mean, just coming to that, one of the things I've found with economics more broadly is that it's an incredibly powerful discipline. So I spent the last 4 years in Southeast Asia advising governments on economic policy, but also other policies as well, but particularly the transition to democracy, things like that. Economics offers incredible insights into things like that because one of the things we know is that people respond to incentives. And so economics is all about how to craft those to get all sorts of social and political outcomes. So it's not just, you know, economics is not Wall Street, or it's not basically what we just narrowly people think about in terms of economics. It's a very broad discipline which brings brings a way of thinking about the world, but as I said, it's really powerful in making decisions.
Absolutely. And off the back of that, here at Macquarie University, we also offer something called the Bachelor of Combined Studies, which basically means you can put the Bachelor of Economics with a variety of other degrees. So for example, you can do the law, the finance, all those business related courses, but you could put it with music or media and communications. So there's actually over 873 possible combinations with the Bachelor of Combined Studies. So you're really enabled to actually study what you want to study, and that's a pretty cool opportunity that Macquarie actually offers here.
Yeah.
So now you did just mention that circumstances are changing within the economic world because of COVID. Can you just run us through what's happening?
Yeah.
How's it all happening at the moment?
I mean, as an economist, I'm a little bit biased, but this is a most exciting time to be involved in economics. The world of economics has essentially been turned on its head by COVID. Okay. Just about every rule in the book is being broken at the moment. We mentioned globalisation before. The world is closing up. We're looking at the actions of government, for instance. As economists, we're often warning governments about the importance of not taking on too much debt, about sound monetary management, sound fiscal policy and all that. We're ripping it all up. Everything is being ripped up at the moment. Everything's changing, but economics allows us to think about that in ways that are incredibly productive. And it's really quite interesting. Again, as if someone was a historian of economic thought, these few years now are going to be seen as absolutely seminal, because ideas that have been percolating along are suddenly coming to the fore. So probably people watching this may have heard of something called modern monetary theory. Very much a background sort of left of field sort of idea, absolutely central now to the way economists are thinking about things. So we're looking at all sorts of ideas like that have been bubbling along, trying to grab what is useful, what is not, against an environment of profound uncertainty. But as I say, economics gives us a way of thinking about it and responding into it in the midst of uncertainty. But it gives us a discipline, to use that expression, of being able to think things through.
Absolutely. So you've told us there are an array of options of combining economics with other disciplines here at Macquarie. And you've also just mentioned that economics is going off. There's some really cool changes happening at the moment. So I guess something that's really important to touch on, why study economics here at Macquarie University? Why the Bachelor of Economics here?
Yeah, well, there's a number of things. Some are just really practical. I went just before coming on here, I went for a walk around the campus. Macquarie's campus is so beautiful
these
days.
I know,
It's tragic that nobody's here and we're all watching things online, but the campus is fantastic. So I just put that, minor matter perhaps, but just put that on the table. Something you mentioned, the extraordinarily interdisciplinary nature of things at Macquarie. So you can combine a lot of stuff. At many other places, you're probably prematurely forced down narrow paths and then having to backtrack out of them perhaps in your mid-20s.
And restricting yourself from
and restricting yourself. Yep, and very often you don't know what you want to do until you get here and you sample things and so on. So that flexibility is absolutely critical. Another factor, really important factor, is that we're very concerned at Macquarie that the economics be applied. And so it's not... So economics at its most theoretical level, if I could be critical of my own discipline for a bit...
you can do that.
Indeed. At its most theoretical level, it's got heavily mathematical. Many students hate it. Many other people hate it. And just the whole idea that it's become too abstract and so on. But applied economics still has all those wonderful things that attract people to economics. It's about doing stuff, being part of the conversation, being able to make a difference, being part of a policy debate, etc. And so at Macquarie, we're very much centred in the applied aspect of economics. And most of the academics here are people who come not only from academia, but from things like the Reserve Bank, from the banking sector more broadly, from sort of foreign economic relations areas. So there's a lot of expertise, if you like, at that very applied level.
Okay. Now, talking about that practical experience, so students actually within their degree can get that practical experience. It's actually incorporated with what we call professional and community engagement, PACE. Now, it's in every degree here at Macquarie University, the Capstone unit, that PACE unit. But can you just run us through some of the experiences that past students have had with that Capstone PACE unit? Yep,
well, I can indeed, because I'm actually teaching in that Capstone unit.
There you go.
So we're making it, again, extremely applied, extremely realistic. We use the economics that people have learned throughout the degree. So at the end of your sort of 3 years, you've got all this great stuff, ways of thinking that we mentioned before, and we throw real world problems at people and look at current government documents, policy papers, balance sheets of banks and so on, and say, well, okay, what would you do? And then we bring in people from outside. So we bring in people from the Reserve Bank, from Treasury, from Foreign Affairs, etc., to chat to the students. Plus, there are opportunities for the students to visit those places as well. And I'm constantly amazed, not only does Macquarie give students the opportunity to do that, but what I'm amazed and really pleased about is that the modern student, if I can say that, are incredibly capable and have just immense reserves of get up and go, and they actually take up those opportunities and they seek out
making the most of it.
Interactions at RBA, at Treasury and so on. I think that's actually a qualitative difference, if I can say this, between the students of 2020 and students of, say, 30 years ago when I was a student. It's really quite remarkable and really pleasing as a teacher.
It's incredible. Well, I hope you're all listening to that, because it's exciting times to be within economics. But just one last question has come through which I would like to touch on. If you take the course of economics, will you get the chance to transition or pick up actuarial studies? So is it a pathway, or do you know anything about that? Can you touch on that?
Absolutely. I mean, the two are a great combination. And in fact, down the years, I have many actuarial students in some of the units I teach. They're always really good to teach, actually, because I mentioned earlier that some students get frightened of maths. Actuarial students never get frightened of maths. So they say, bring it on, more maths, please. It's a wonderful combination, and it's a traditional combination here at Macquarie. In fact, for many, many years, Macquarie was the only university in New South Wales to teach actuarial studies. So we have a very strong background at integrating actuarial studies into our other units.
And just one last thing I'd like to ask out of personal curiosity. Someone going into economics, say someone considering the Bachelor of Economics here at Macquarie University, let's say someone in year 12 currently watching this from their lounge room.
Yeah.
What tips can you give to prospective students? How can they prepare for this study and this career?
I think the best thing is just to be engaged in the world. The best thing you can do is watch the news, read the quality newspapers, read The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, the Financial Times and all that, and just engage in the world, because that's really what I think economics really offers people. It's a zone through which you can understand the modern world, interact with it, and really think about how you might want to shape it, whether it be from environmental policy to human rights, or indeed just economics itself, narrowly defined.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your answers. I've learnt a lot. So I hope for those of you at home, you have also learnt some valuable information. So thank you so much for your time, Associate Professor. And thank you to all of those of you at home tuning in. Now, that's the end of today's session for Bachelor of Economics, but there is more coming up. So our next session is on careers in economics. That's at 1 p.m. So this was Bachelor of Economics. Next is Careers in Economics. So if I've seen you now, I hope to see you then. In the meantime, if you have any questions you want to ask, there's still the live chat button, bottom left-hand corner of your screen. But also, check out our competitions page. So you should see a banner on the page that you're currently on. If you're seeing me, you should see the banner, but we have 2 competitions running at the moment. Spot the Student, where you basically watch a couple of videos and see how many times students pop up. And then the other one is See Yourself at Macquarie. We've given you some landscapes and we want you to put yourself in those landscapes however you choose fit, and get involved, have some fun, maybe win a prize. So thank you for your time, and thank you to all of those at home, and we'll see you soon.